Welcome, everybody, back to another fantastic episode of the Three Man Rush podcast. And looks like we got all three of us today. I'm your host, Landon Oliver, here with my two co-hosts, Andrew Scott and Jared Holly. And for today's episode, we do have a special Dynasty mock draft 1.0 for fantasy football. So this is before all of the teams draft. We know where guys are going. This is basically just giving you an early peek at kind of where we have some of these rookies ranked in our Dynasty rookie drafts. And if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button. 87% of all people that watch our videos are not subscribed. So make sure to show us some love, hit the subscribe button. That way you can get notified. And especially if you hit the little bell, you will know every time we drop a new video, which as the season gets closer, as fantasy starts ramping up, we're going to have some really great content out for you. Don't forget mock draft. If you didn't watch, we did our NFL real life mock draft 1.0. We got some really good views on that. So check that out. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, any of that stuff, thank you guys so much. But if you are watching, you want a visual of everything, just go check us out on YouTube at Three Man Rush. And then also follow us on Twitter at Three Man Rush Podcast as well. We do monthly giveaways where we give away some kind of autographed sports memorabilia. It costs no money for you to enter. All you gotta do is follow us, like the tweet, all that kind of stuff. So this last month, we did give out a signed Quentin Nelson helmet. One of the guys, Nate, that follow us on Twitter, he won that. So really proud of him for helping us out there with some, subscriptions and all that stuff. So congrats to him. And we'll be doing another one in April. So make sure to follow us on Twitter so you can enter that. And, without too much left to say, it's time to get into this podcast. So first off, how you guys doing?
Doing wonderful, man. Feels good to get into what is my favorite time of the year, getting into the dynasty side of things, getting in. I know, the NFL mock draft is a little like the NFL draft stuff. I'm only 2 years deep into this, but the dynasty stuff, we've been doing that together before, that aged out before the podcast. So really excited to start getting into this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Jared, he's real big into the fantasy stuff. He likes he's more of a daily guy, but he does like fantasy football. So I've been playing fantasy football with Jared for about 10 years now as well. So, so excited to have him on for this one. And there are a few things I do want to touch on before we get into the mock draft. First of all, the news that dropped tonight, and that is Bruce Arians is retiring, taking a front office role. And now, Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a new head coach. So, any thoughts on that real quick?
Number one, I just think it's cool that Todd Bowles is getting the opportunity and that it's not with a scrapped bottom of the barrel team. Like, this team is still good. They're still ready to win. And Bruce could have easily, coached this team as long as Brady was around and then decided to retire. But that's not the case. So, this league needs more minority head coaches.
For sure.
And I think Todd Bowles is a great head coach, or a great coach in general. His defenses have been top 10 in DVOA for like 5 years straight now. And I don't expect a whole lot to change really, because Byron Leftwich had a lot of call, like a lot of power in the offense, even with Bruce Arians there last year. So, Arians is still going to be in the building. You still got the two main guys on offense and defense calling the shots. So I don't think it's it's going to matter because Bruce Arians is a great head coach, but I don't think it's going to be a gigantic, harm to this team.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you have a leader like Brady still there.
Yeah. I was going to say, they got their head coach back the other day, unretired.
Right.
But no, I think Todd Bowles is going to do a great job, man. I think it's going to be great. I don't see them dropping in any way, shape, or form on any of that. So
yeah, so fun. Pretty cool. Little news that dropped there, and then also there was some news came out. This one specifically for Big Jared Holly.
Oh Lord!
So Jim Irsay doing the full Macho Man off the top rope, dropping the elbow on Carson Wentz. I guess it was yesterday when the quote dropped, said, per the quote, Jim Irsay, let's see here, the full quote. I kind of wanted to
it's something along the lines of we made a bad decision. Or
like he couldn't wait to get out of it or something like that.
He said we had to move away. It was very obvious.
Yes.
And then so first off, what do you think of Big Jim out there big boot and leg drop on Carson on his way out.
I feel like he's been public about the whole thing, like even before those comments, like him taking like the before the plane ride or getting off the plane or getting, I can't remember if it was on or off. Like, he was pretty heated, man.
Oh, the all chips in video.
I mean, I do like it. I like Irsay as far as like, I mean, it shows that he wants to win one. I think he's tired of mediocrity, just like Carson Wentz. I think if Carson Wentz would have been a different type of leader, then he'd still be in Indianapolis. I don't think the 1 year in the collapse at the end of the season, I think it was everything that led up to the non-vaccination. And Irsay just, it also helps too that I got Matt Ryan. I think he is a little bit more confident now with what he's saying.
I think everybody's a little more confident.
It's good to have an owner that cares. It's certainly a lot better to have an owner that cares.
Yeah, and see, this is my thing. So a lot of people have been really mad on Twitter saying like, just let it go. Like the guy's not on the team anymore. You don't need to make these comments about him. Here's my view on it. And I even put this on Twitter. I actually got quite a bit of engagement on this tweet. But, my thing is, look, the whole reason he keeps talking about it is because the media keeps asking him questions about it. So if 3 out of every 4 questions you get are, like, what happened with Carson? What happened with Carson? Why'd you move on with Carson?
I'm sure he's tired of hearing it.
Exactly. Like, what kind of answer do you think you're going to get? Because as we know, look, Jim Irsay's never been the type of guy that's just going to BS you. Like, he's very, like, he wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's just going to tell you how he feels. And that's what the media is kind of looking for. They're looking for that quote because they know Jim will give it to them. So, I mean, people can hate on it or whatever. To me, the funniest part of the whole thing, the whole interview, if you read it, Zach Kiefer did a great article. He's on The Athletic. So follow him at Zach Kiefer on Twitter if you are listening to this. Some really, really great stuff that him and Stephen Holder do for The Athletic over there. But the funniest part of the whole thing was this right here. No disrespect to Jacksonville. And automatically right off the bat, if you say no disrespect,
you're about to disrespect the shit out of them.
Exactly. You have to disrespect. He said, no disrespect to Jacksonville, but I mean, they're the worst team in the league.
He's not wrong. Number one
He's
pick
not
2
wrong.
years in a row.
Yeah, you play well and hard for the first quarter or so, and they're looking to go to their locker room and clean it out. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Yikes.
And then he said, my God, he's like, you say, my God, there's something wrong here. It needs to be corrected. And I feel like we did that. So he says, there's something wrong here. It needed to be corrected. We felt like we did that. What's the one move that they corrected this offseason?
Yeah, the only change has been the quarterback position. Everything else is the exact same.
Exactly.
I mean, like Rock Yassin and stuff, like very small moves, but the only one of like huge magnitude is pretty obvious where that was.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's very rare to hear an owner come out and just be like, look, this team fucking sucks. Okay.
Well,
like,
correct me if I'm wrong.
They beat us.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the same game where the fans wore the clown outfits?
It was the clown game.
Yeah, they literally trolled the front office of Jacksonville. Their own fans did. Yeah.
And they smacked the Colts
as
around.
Pat McAfee so eloquently always puts it, clown time.
Clown time. Yeah. So yeah, I just, man, like,
if I was a Jaguars fan, I'd wear clown outfits every week.
Man.
Yeah. Well, you're pretty much halfway there. If you wear a Jaguars jersey, you're pretty much wearing a half a clown uniform right there. So yeah, man, I thought that was some pretty funny stuff from Jim. And I mean, yeah, like I said, I just hope this finally moves on. I hope now that they finally got the quote, the media's going, they got what they were looking for. Maybe they'll quit asking anybody in the Colts organization about Carson Wentz, because that seems to be the only thing they want to talk about right now. Every time you put a microphone in front of a Colts, personnel or owner or GM, it's what went wrong with Carson Wentz. It's like, man, I don't know how many times we got to keep telling you. I mean, so
did you not watch the last half of the season?
Yeah. And also too, something really cool that came out of the owners meeting, that happened this, over the last few days, is now we officially have overtime changes for the playoffs, where now both teams will finally get the ball. They did it for the regular season, and I know what you're going to say, or they did it for the postseason. Why didn't they do it for the regular season? Kind of talked to you guys about this the other day. So teams that win the coin flip in the regular season have a 52% chance of winning the ball game. So, I mean, it's relatively even across the board there in the regular season. You get pretty even results. In the playoffs, however, it is over a 90% chance that teams that win the coin flip win the ball game. So that is a huge, huge difference from the regular season. And on top of that, I believe there's been 12 overtime games. The team, in recent memory in the playoffs, and the team that won the coin toss are 10-2 in those games, 10-2, and 7 of those 10 victories, the other team never even got the ball. So I think it is much more of a pronounced difference in the playoffs than the regular season, but this could be something, they're going to try out in the playoffs. And if it works out well, maybe it does go to the regular season.
I think it's fine the way it is. I think it should be only postseason. Something too, to like, the more plays, the more game, like the longer the game goes, the more chances of injuries. And like, to me, if I'm a fan of a team and my team's playing in overtime and it's week 2 and it's overtime game and I lose a star running back or star wide receiver for the season, and we got 16 more games all because of that overtime game, like, to me, like, playoffs it's do or die anyways. Like, you're going to lay it all out there. Regular season, there's still games to play. I don't think it needs to be regular season. That's me.
Well, I mean, it's good for the fans too. Anytime you can get both quarterbacks out on the field, and I'm never going to turn down more football. So I think it's really
why you should want both teams to have the ball in the regular season. Like, there's more overtime games in the regular season than there are in the playoffs. So the sample size is smaller in the playoffs. So I would expect the percentage to be higher. But like, a player can get injured in the first quarter just as easy as they can get injured in overtime. But like, to make it to the playoffs, you have to win regular season games. And the overtime rules are still affecting regular season games. And teams miss out of the playoffs by one game all the time. And what if that one game is one of the overtime games where they don't get to touch the ball? I hope their strategy is what you said, Landon, that they're testing it out in the playoffs this year and they eventually move it to the regular season. Because, the regular season games are important to get you to the playoffs. So if you have one of those altering games in overtime, it could flip your season, because that's with how competitive the NFL is to get into the playoffs. That's all it takes is one game. So I don't see why that shouldn't be in the regular season as well. I agree. I get that the percentage of games, that have been affected by the first possession is smaller in the regular season than it is in the playoffs, but it's still affecting games regardless. So I would just rather see it across the board, so that there's no more ifs, ands, or buts whenever it comes to teams getting in the playoffs or not.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm just excited for it. I'm glad some things have finally changed there.
Yeah, the playoff change needed to happen. So that's a win in itself.
And the best part about it is it was, the Colts and the Eagles kind of jointly brought the proposal forward. The Titans also brought a proposal forward, but everybody said, hell no, that's a dumbass idea. Go home, Tennessee. And so we like the Colts idea better. So we're going to take that one. Yeah. So, anytime you can dismiss anything to do with the Titans and then take the Colts idea to where everybody thinks, hey, the Colts made this better. The Titans, your idea is dumb. That's all is right in the world. That's the way it should be. So pretty excited about that. So now we will finally officially get in to our 2022 Dynasty Fantasy Football Rookie Mock Draft 1.0. I'm ready to absolutely bitch slap this mock draft like its name is Chris Rock. And you didn't think we were going to go a whole show without getting a Will Smith joke in, did you?
Oh, you had to get one in somewhere. I wasn't sure where it was going to happen, but I knew it was going to happen. God,
before we start this, God, what did y'all see that shit? What? That's a dumb question.
I'll make one comment. This is the most people have talked about the Oscars in the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's why it was fake.
It wouldn't end up, it was the highest. It was the highest rated one in like 10 years too, and it was still like the second lowest in ratings of all time. That doesn't make complete sense, but it was something like that. Like the ratings spiked.
I'll tell you this:
there's a little bit of Hollywood involved.
If you could promise me that at some point during every Oscar show, 2 celebrities would fight on stage, I would tune in. Watching one. I'd watch every single one of them.
Yeah, like if they
So,
tell you like there's going to be a gigantic slap, but we're not going to tell you when.
yeah,
I'm
we're not
tuned
going to
in.
tell you when. We're not going to tell you who the celebrities are, but two celebrities are going to beat the shit out of each other on stage. I'm watching that every year. Like I'm DVRing that shit.
I think literally, I think it was like they said it was double the viewership from last year, but it was still like the second worst of all time. Like the last 2 years have been the worst. So they're pulling anything they can out, I think.
I'm just curious to think the way I look at it. I thought this was funny. Like, well, there's two things about it that I thought was funny. One, that it was Chris Rock that he went up there and did that, because I think if The Rock would have said that same joke, Will Smith probably wouldn't be getting.
No, he's not slapping him.
No. And then two, I thought it was really funny that, that's where he drew the line. Like, not whenever your girl's out there fucking other dudes, it's whenever Chris Rock makes a G.I. Jane joke. Like, that's when it's too far. So that's the dude you got. Like, you couldn't slap the dude that was like taking your girl down, but you're gonna slap the dude that makes a joke.
The only person that should have been slapped was Chris Rock's joke writer for making that terrible G.I. Jane joke. I mean, come on, man. That's like, that was like
not one of his better ones.
No, I like Chris Rock.
Yeah, I love.
I think it was rigged.
Which I do too, honestly. But because look now, apparently Chris Rock is recording he's at a stand-up comedy show tonight that he has. There's no cell phones, none of that allowed there. And the average ticket price to get in the door on StubHub, it was $88 before the Oscars. It was over $1,000 to get into the Oscar after the slap. So if it was real,
chilling somewhere getting his cut.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, like Will Smith did him a huge favor, because now Chris Rock is about to make some bank over the next few months.
Well, they'll probably be in Grown Ups 3 together. Like next time Adam Sandler gets bored, and
Adam Sandler's gonna bring him in. Yeah, look, Will, you guys need to mend. We'll just bring you on.
Apparently, P. Diddy was the mediator. They apparently squashed it at Beyonce's after party. P. Diddy was the guy that brought them together.
Hollywood's so stupid.
God love him.
I'm so glad I'm a sports fan. I'm not wrapped up in all that shit.
God, man, me too.
Thank God for sports.
Yeah, for sure. And so, speaking of sports, you're not here to listen to us talk about this, but you are here, or if you're on YouTube, you're here to watch us do the mock draft, the Dynasty mock draft. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna go from top to bottom. Andrew's pick number 1. I've got pick 2, Jared's pick 3, and then we will alternate. It is going to be just 2 rounds, 24 picks. That way we're not sitting here going like 6 rounds deep into, people that aren't even going to get drafted.
No, the third round of rookie drafts are gross enough. I'm not interested to go 5 rounds deep or anything like that right now.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's really kind of you guys to give me the layup, because I mean, right now I think it's our YouTube thumbnail boy that's the obvious pick for the 101 in Dynasty rookie drafts with Breece Hall. I think he's the most complete running back, and at the end of the day, the running back scarcity is still there. And I think he has the best chance to be the first running back off the board and to be a 3-down back. Now, there is a running back that I think is a better pure runner in this class that we'll talk about in a little while. But just as far as the complete package, I do think Breece Hall is the best that the running back position has to offer in this class. And so I'm going to take him at the 101, even though there are some receivers I like more long-term. But if he lands in a good spot to where he can be a 3-down back, he will be very easily the 101 for me at that point. But that's kind of the question mark, which is the whole point of us doing this before the NFL draft, so we can kind of see how our feelings change pre-draft, just looking at these players, and all we had to go off of is college production, their athletic testing, the combine, their pro days. That's what we're basing all this off of. And then the NFL draft is going to add another layer for us here in about a month. So it'll be really interesting to do one of these post-draft and see how much this changes. But for me, right now, Breece Hall is 101.
Yeah, and so the way I look at it too, like kind of like what you said, so I'm more susceptible to taking a wide receiver just because their careers are longer in general. So whenever I'm doing like a dynasty rookie, like if I'm stacked at wide receiver and I need a running back, yeah, Breece Hall would probably be my guy. But if I don't really have a big need at running back, I'm much more likely to take a wide receiver just because they're going to have a lot longer of a career generally than running backs will. So that is just something, that's the way I look at it. So luckily for me, you took the running back out of the equation. I can just go straight wide receiver here. And for me, I'm actually not going to take the top guy on the sleeper board. I'm actually going to take the guy below him. So I'm going to go
Damn
Garrett
you.
Wilson as, did you just call me an idiot?
No, I said damn you.
Oh, I thought you just said idiot. And I'm like, well,
No.
hot damn, Jared.
No. Like,
Hopping
coming in,
off like
coming in,
not.
coming in
treating me
hot.
like I'm over
I
here
thought
Jim
I was gonna have
Irsay
the
me on the
third pick, and that was gonna
podcast.
fall to me anyways. But no,
I mean, look, you wouldn't be the first person to call me an idiot. So I've actually been called a lot worse. Just even today, I've probably been called worse than that. So yeah, I'm going to take Garrett Wilson, who to me is my wide receiver one in this class. Just love everything he brings to the table, and I think he's going to be the first wide receiver drafted. And if he goes to a good situation where targets are available, then it's a clear no-brainer for me personally. So I'll just toss it back down to Jared.
yeah, that's who I was targeting. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna go with Kenneth Walker, the third from Michigan State. I think depending on where he lands, he could be a day one starter and he can get bulk of carries. Like he looks like a guy to me that he's gonna touch the ball 20 times a game if he gets to run, depending on his situation. So I like Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, it very well could be. So whenever I said the best pure runner, I didn't think it was Brees Hall. It's because I think it is Kenneth Walker. I do think he is the best pure runner in this class, and he didn't have the receptions in college, but I mean at the combine, and he looked like he could, like he looked smooth in the receiving drills. And Daniel Jeremiah did say recently that he spoke with Michigan State's head coach and was like, that just wasn't part of our offense, but here's some film of him doing it in practice. And I mean, I haven't seen the film myself, but Daniel Jeremiah said he looked good catching passes.
Yeah, well, that was a big knock on Jonathan Taylor coming out, was that he didn't catch passes, and then
he turned out okay.
Yeah, exactly. He ended up being pretty good. So,
yeah,
which I'm not saying Kenneth Walker is Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
But I'm just saying.
No, he should be a strong running back though, and I think if him and Brees Hall both land 3 down roles, I do think there's a world where Kenneth Walker is the best running back in this class. But I will say there's a pretty steep drop for me after this at the running back position. There's not a running back 3 that I love. There's a couple guys that I like beyond this, but those are the 2 guys that I really like at running back in this class, and then it really starts to drop. So I mean, spoiler alert, I'm back on the clock. I'm certainly not taking another running back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my running back one. I'm going to take my wide receiver one, which is Drake London out of USC. Garrett Wilson is my wide receiver 2, so it's not a huge gap between, where you have him. But I love Drake London's game, man. He's not your average big guy receiver where he can't move or anything like that. Like they would use him in the short game. He wasn't just a jump ball receiver, but he can do that as well. I think the Mike Evans comparisons are warranted. But I understand why he scares people, because you have like the JJ Arcega Whitesides of the past, the Hakeem Butlers, those guys like that, to where like if you take a shot on the big guy and
he reminds me a lot of of one of his former teammates at USC, and now a Colts wide receiver as well. That's Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I mean USC continues to churn out wide receivers with Pittman and
Amon-Ra St.
Brown, Juju,
Detroit, Juju.
They're a wide receiver factory out there. But I really like what I saw from Drake London. I don't think he's a one-trick pony where, he's just a guy that's going to high point the ball. You can use him in short routes. They, run him and put him in motion.
Mesh concepts.
Yeah. Put him in motion. He's very fluid. I think he's a really good overall wide receiver that's just getting started, and so my hopes are high for Drake London, so I like getting him here at the 4th spot.
And so so you took that, and this makes this next decision extremely easy for me.
Yeah,
and for sure. So I'm definitely gonna take Treylon Burks, and if he drops to 5, honestly, for me, I'm probably doing cartwheels. He's a guy that, I hate player comps. I really do, because it never rarely works out, but I see a lot of, he reminds me of kind of like a slightly less athletic AJ Brown is who he reminds me of. When you watch him, he's actually, I know the combine testing was not good and stuff like that, but look, whenever you turn on the tape, he's outrunning dudes who did test well at the combine. So I don't think I'm not worried at all about him. If it
No.
wasn't, honestly, he's probably my wide receiver 2 in this class in front of Drake London. And he very well could end up being wide receiver 1, depending on where they get drafted at, for sure. But he's just a guy that's, very sure-handed, really great after the catch. He gets open, he gets separation, and he's not, a small frame guy either. He can break
No.
tackles. He can do almost everything you want him to on the field. So yeah, Treylon Burks at 5. If I'm team 5, I'm in for it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how these first 5 picks shake out, because I do think Treylon Burks is the one guy for me that if he lands in the right spot, he could easily, at least fantasy-wise, he could easily vault up to wide receiver 1 if he lands on a team where I'm confident they're going to use him the right way. Because, Arkansas wasn't a prolific passing offense, but they got him the ball. They just got the ball in his hands over and over. It was very similar to, like how the 49ers use Debo, except he's not as explosive as Debo, similar to, the AJ Brown comp. He's not that level of an athlete, but he is an athlete, make no mistake about it. And if he's used the correct way and he lands in an offensive system that's going to use him in a way to maximize his potential, yeah, he could absolutely end up being wide receiver 1 in this class, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. These 3 wide receivers that are off the board, I like a lot. There's 2 others that I like quite a bit too, but these 3 guys though are kind of entrenched for me, at least for now, before the draft, as my 3 favorite guys, and then the 2 running backs as well. I think these top 5 picks, it's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out.
Right, for sure. So that leaves Jared
on the clock.
On the
clock.
It's a little reach here, but I actually like Sky Moore. I know it seems like a lot of Michigan draft picks I'm taking here, but he's an undersized wide receiver. But a lot of people have him going in the 2nd round in the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. The thing that he does well, though, is yards after the catch. He is unbelievable in situations like that, and really reliable hands and a good speed. He shows a lot of burst. I think with the right offense, he could definitely pick up a lot of PPR points, especially even if it's half point. I think he's very valuable for fantasy drafts.
Yeah, he was one of I believe he was one of the risers that were mentioned whenever we talked about the NFL Combine. I think he was a guy that we brought up as well. So definitely, we're over here at the 3-Man Rush podcast, we are a fan of Sky Moore for sure. That bring it back to me? Yeah. Okay. Yep. So then I'm going to take my next best wide receiver, because I'm not near ready to take another running back, but my next favorite wide receiver on the board is Jameson Williams from Alabama. And now he's, maybe he misses some games in his rookie season. I saw something today. He's supposed to be ready to be running by the time the NFL draft starts. And so apparently things are going really well in terms of his rehab and everything like that. And just the speed and the twitchiness that this dude has, just like watching his stop and go, is just unreal, man. It's going to be so hard for even NFL DBs to keep up with. And I'm excited to see where he lands in the draft, because of his injury, I do think he starts to slip into, I don't think he's going to slip all the way down to Kansas City or anything like that, but I do think he's going to fall into the areas where you have competent teams. It's not like the Texans are drafting him or something like that.
Some stuff that I heard today as well from some draft guys, especially with a lot of these owner meetings going around, and there's a lot of NFL people in the same circles. A lot of people have Jameson Williams as their wide receiver 1 on their draft board.
Really?
Yes. So there's a lot of talk of him going higher than what anybody even expects him to go. And I'm expecting him. I believe we had him in the teens, I think early 20s into the teens.
We had him in the teens in our mock draft.
Yeah. So, they're talking about him possibly even, moving up higher than that. So
yeah, I thought it was purely like a battle between Garrett Wilson and Drake London for the first receiver off the board. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So just some tidbits to share with you guys on that. And now this brings it up to me, and I'm actually going to break the mold a little bit here. So when we're looking at fantasy purposes, I'm looking at guys that could possibly be top 5 players at their position. It is Dynasty League. Drew already knows where I'm going with this. I pulled it up, and I'm taking a quarterback off the board here. It's this late in the 1st round. The only guy really that fits that mold for me, that I would be willing to take a chance on, is Malik Willis. And this is really going to depend on where he does end up landing. And this is Dynasty, so it's not, I don't fully expect Malik Willis to come out the gate starting or anything. It'd be very similar to a Trey Lance scenario that was last year. Trey Lance was a top 6 pick in most rookie mock drafts, or in most rookie drafts in Dynasty. So I'm not letting Malik Willis fall that far behind that. I'm going to go ahead and take the guy. He's got fantasy purposes. He has the rushing floor, an extremely, extremely electric runner, the big arm to make all the plays. And if he does end up hitting for me, you're probably looking at a perennial, at least bottom level top 5 quarterback in fantasy football. Just because, I mean, as we saw what Jalen Hurts did last year, and Jalen Hurts doesn't have near the arm talent that Malik Willis does. And he might not even be as fast as Malik Willis is, to be certain, even as a runner. So yeah, I'm not, there are a lot of wide receivers that I still like, but I think I'm going to be able to get those at the turn on the next round. Get one of these wide receivers that I'm really high on. So I'm stopping the slide with Malik Willis here.
Yeah, still a little bit early for me. I've got him at 14 overall personally for Dynasty, but I really don't have a problem with it. And I mean, whenever teams pick it in the back of the first round, that means you most likely, unless you traded for the pick, you most likely probably had a pretty good season in your Dynasty league last year. And if you're a team that has like say Tom Brady was your quarterback one,
Aaron Rodgers
was your quarterback one, something like that, and you don't, if you performed well, you might not have a lot of holes. So, plugging that hole with a guy that has that top end quarterback one upside with his rushing ability mixed with the athletic gifts that he has, that's a luxury, even in one quarterback league. Like, this is a one
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Draft,
say you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers sitting there, and you're probably going to get at least a couple more years out of him, but after that, he's probably gone. A couple of years might be what Malik Willis needs to step in, and you could replace a top 5 quarterback in fantasy with another top 5 quarterback in fantasy, and now you're set at quarterback, for your Dynasty league for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, I will say he's the only quarterback I have that I think should be going in the first 2 rounds, and I think he's the only quarterback in this class that has that fantasy upside to be, like,
which I think is another reason why people might reach on him a little bit, was because it's not a great quarterback class, especially for fantasy football.
Yeah.
So if you are in need of a quarterback and you are drafting in Dynasty, he's really the only one that you would even take a shot on. So I think that'll push him up some boards a little bit higher than what people expect.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
All right, Big Jared.
Well, I'm not ready to move off of wide receivers yet. This kind of goes back to our previous draft. We were actually doing a fantasy draft, and I think this guy's got a lot of upside. But if he lands late in the first round to a team like Kansas City, especially, that would be amazing. But Christian Watson would be my next pick.
Damn it, I wanted to.
I actually prefer him over Pickens. Like, I think he's going to have a better career than Pickens. I mean,
fantasy wise, I could agree.
Yeah, that's what this is
yeah, exactly.
So
I still have George Pickens. I think is going to have a more successful, real life career. But
I think where
that's for another show.
So, yeah, fantasy wise, I like Watson.
Watson's a tough one for me, man, because like NFL Combine wise, he was one of Landon's risers, I believe, and I was really excited about that pick. I liked what I saw too. But the more I started watching some of the games, his drop rate kind of concerned me, and there's definitely some concerns there where you're kind of just betting on the athletic ability, and it could certainly turn into something wonderful, especially for fantasy, if he lands in the right spot and you can mix his athletic ability with being in a high powered offense. Like, this is a very high upside pick. But George Pickens is on a different level for me, where I think if he didn't have the injuries, I think he's a day 1 NFL draft pick with the frame he has, the athletic ability he has. I think he is a more polished receiver than Christian Watson is. But you do have the injury concerns where he's coming, he came back into the season. He's put more tape on, he's put more tape out there since he came back. But
I think the only concern for me with Pickens is that he hasn't really improved dramatically from his rookie or from his freshman year to now. I mean, he's improved a little bit, but not dramatically. Whereas it's almost kind of the opposite with Watson, where he's really gotten better. And the one thing I will say for Watson is it was really important for him at the Senior Bowl because of the level of competition he faced at North Dakota State. Because he didn't really have much of a route tree at all, and I still don't think he does. He's not a very polished route runner at all. He could just run by people. Like that's what he did at North Dakota State. That's what he did in college. So it was really important for me to see him at the Senior Bowl with really a lot higher level of a competition. And even at the Senior Bowl, I think he was clearly the best wide receiver there at the Senior Bowl. So that really stood out to me as well. Plus, like you said, the upside with him is really, really high. I just still think I've just always kind of had a crush on George Pickens, even, going back to his sophomore year there at Georgia. And
his freshman season was incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's a guy that I just think has a safer floor, but it is fantasy. A lot of times you chase the upside. So
yeah, and I don't hate the pick either. Like in saying that, like
I
Christian Watson is my 10th overall player, and he got taken at 9. So it's not like I'm like, wow, that's a humongous reach or anything like that.
So he's probably the guy I was going to take at 11. So
yeah, I mean, I just have 2 wide receivers in front of him, both of which are still on the board. So I would just follow my board and take the next guy here, and grab Chris Olave, which is kind of surprising that I'm the one that ended up picking him, because I figured I would be the one that would be lowest on it, because I have him as my wide receiver 5, behind London and Wilson and Treylon Burks and Jamison Williams. I have him as the wide receiver 5. I do think he gets day 1 draft capital. I would be surprised if he didn't get drafted in the first round. And I just obviously the speed's there, the deep threat's there. He's a polished wide receiver, but I'm not like the biggest Chris Olave fan, so it's kind of surprising I'm the one that ended up picking him here. But I think at this point with the 10th overall pick, it was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Yes. So also I'm a big Olave fan. I think he'll have a lot of fantasy value. I don't think he's going to have a ton of PPR value, but I think he is going to have some fantasy value where he's going to give you, that boomer bust. Yeah, those boomer bust type production. Yeah. So another guy that could possibly give you boom or bust type production, as much as I love George Pickens, I'm not going to take George Pickens here. I think he's going to be a lot better of a real life player than a fantasy player. And you're going to have to scroll down a little bit, more than likely. He's a guy that I have a massive crush on. Scroll down a little further.
Tell me the name. I know where he's at.
Keep going.
Oh man.
Keep going. Why is he still not showing up? This is crazy. Keep going.
Yeah, I'll just type in his name. Why don't you tell me what it is?
Okay. You already know who it is, baby. It's Calvin Austin III.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Down at 256. That is crazy.
Which that's 256 overall. Like this is just rookies.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
factoring in everybody.
So I know this is a reach. I get that. But look,
yeah.
I'm trusting my eyes on what I see. And this guy is so much more than just a speed receiver. He is a very proficient route runner, very technical route runner, has great hands, blazing speed. He's a touchdown waiting to happen. And to me, like, look, this could be one of those situations, and I'm not trying to compare them, even though their athletic testing is very, very similar. Tyreek Hill in a rookie mock draft, whenever he was drafted, he was a 5th round pick. He wasn't really on anybody's board. And now you're looking back at that draft and you're like, man, I wish I would have had Tyreek Hill. This could be a very similar situation where everybody sees this guy and they see him as, oh, well, he's going to be a punt returner. He's just a speed guy. But you put on the tape, man, and like this guy is such a good route runner. He gets so much separation just from how quick he is. He does struggle in press, and it is something he will have to work on. But I mean, that was the big knock with Devontae Smith coming out last year was, how's he handle press coverage? Hard to get press coverage whenever the guy's getting off the line that quick. So I don't worry about Calvin Austin at all. And like I said, he is, to me, one of the biggest draft crushes I have. I think he's firmly supplanted himself in the late 2nd, 3rd round pick in the real NFL draft. Like you're going to see him go there. So he'll still have decent draft capital. And if he goes to a really good offense that knows how to use him properly, I think this guy could be an absolute steal. So, I mean, you might want to wait to get him, maybe, if you're drafting on the turn, if you drafted 1-1, 1-2 overall, you might be able to get him at the end of that round as well and pair him with one of those guys.
You'd definitely be able to.
So I'm just saying, but for me personally, I'm not letting him slip out of the first round. Like, I think this guy has so much upside that he could end up being the best fantasy asset possibly out of this whole class.
Man, you're going to be able to have as many Calvin Austin shares as you want, because I don't see, unless he just like lands.
That's fine with me, man.
The absurd, yeah, no, it's not a bad thing, but unless he lands in like the absurdly like best possible scenario, I would be shocked to see him in the first. So if you're willing to reach for him, and that's what I think you should in rookie rank, like in rookie drafts. I truly think you should just go get your guys, like get the people you're high on. That's the fun thing about Dynasty is you identify players that you love and you go get them and put them on your team, right or wrong. That's the fun thing about Dynasty. So I look, I might think it's a reach, but I love the fact that he's one of your guys and you went and got him. And that's how it should be.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're picking at pick 11 or pick 12, you've probably got a stacked roster anyway. So I mean, like, you've probably got a good roster. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, I mean, like, do I really need a guy that can produce right away? I mean, is that nice to have? Yeah. Or do I want to chase the upside of a guy that, like I said, we might be looking 3-4 years down the road and he might be a better fantasy asset than half of these guys in the first round.
Yeah.
And so the fact, I'm not letting him get away from me. And that's just me personally. And that's what this is. It's a personal mock draft.
Yeah.
We're not, if we wanted to go by, what Sleeper said, we would just go in order.
Isaiah Spiller should have been off the board like 7 picks ago if that was the case.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just the way we view it. And that's how I view it. If you want to kill me in the comments, go ahead and kill me. But look, if I'm right, just know that I'm going to shit on all y'all back.
Yeah. The receipts will be kept.
Yeah, with that being said, if you're going to hang, man, I'm right there with you. I'm about to reach pretty deep on this one too. I feel like the running back situation, and we're overlooking, Williams and White and people like that. Man, I'll take a reach, and this is going to sound nuts, but I like James Cook. He's a running back. It's Dalvin Cook's brother. I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not, but what I look for in a fantasy back, like this guy is probably not going to be a workhorse right out of the gate, but his upside is he's a pass catching running back, and he's very versatile. And there's just a lot of upside with this guy, but as far as fantasy goes, realistically, like he's probably going to go in a 3rd or 4th round in the NFL draft. But he could land in a scenario where like he is the primary pass catching back for an offense.
Yeah, very good pass catching back, like to the point to where he, assuming
probably the best in the draft.
We might different on that a little bit, but he definitely has an argument for it though. Assuming he doesn't get drafted to a team that already has a established pass catching back, he should be able to get on the field right off the rip with that pass catching ability. So at the end of the first round in a draft where there isn't, clear running backs getting on the field, you should be having a guy who you're at least going to get touches out of and should get opportunities. So, at this point, that's what you're looking for. Okay. So I still have one wide receiver above this guy, but I'm going to take my running back 3 just because I want to talk about him. So I'm going to go ahead and get Rachaad White off the board. And I mean, for me, this is a guy I really just got familiar with here recently. And I think he should be, I think there should be a gap between Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker and him, but I do think he should be the 3rd best running back. He had a weight adjusted speed score of 106.3, which put him in the 84th percentile. And he's, from what I've watched, he has some great vision. The only thing I don't really like is that he is 23 years old. So, it's not necessarily young for a running back getting drafted. And he does like, from what I watched here recently, he does like to swing things out wide a lot, try to get to the sidelines. And with the speed in the NFL, it's going to be tough to find success in. But I think he has the capability to be a 3-down back with his size, his speed, and his pass catching ability. I think he could have an argument to being the best pass catching back in this draft. Even though I do like James Cook receiving ability, but right now, Rachaad White is my running back 3. before the draft. And so, to be able to get that at the start of the second round, I would be more than happy with.
Yeah, for sure. And especially like, if you're picking first overall there, you're probably not good on running backs. So you should probably load up at that.
Yeah, that's
whatever
true.
you can.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this one is another tough one for me because like I said, I love George Pickens. I just think he's going to be a much better real life player than he is a fantasy guy. This might come back and bite me, but with the positional scarcity of tight end, I'm going to pick my favorite tight end in the draft class, and that is Trey McBride. Mackey Award winner last year for the nation's best tight end. Had his pro day today, ran a 4.56, 40 times. So clearly a guy that could do some work in the passing game. I think depending on the right situation he goes to for a team that needs a tight end, like for example, the Colts, Jack Doyle retired. All they have is Mo Alley Cox and Kylan Granson on the roster. If he goes to a team like the Colts, where you have Matt Ryan, who loves to use a tight end, they're going to, possibly invest a, day 2 pick on the guy, and he could step in right away. And I think he has enough talent to where he might possibly give you a top 10 tight end season, even as a rookie, which, I know that's not necessarily a huge thing because all you gotta do is catch 3 touchdowns and you're probably a top 10 tight end in fantasy football. But he just has so much upside that, tight end is just such a scarce position. And if you can get a guy that in the coming years can give you that really good production from that position, I'm willing to take a shot on it.
Yeah, it's a scarce position, so that's definitely a good pick. Like he's by far the best tight end in this class for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll make it simple. George Pickens. I'll go ahead and take him off.
Okay.
Yeah, man, I hated to stop the slide there.
He wasn't going to make it any farther. Like if you didn't pick him here, I was going to take him with the next pick. Yeah. So
nothing really needs to be said at this point. He will probably most likely not fall that late in any fantasy drafts, but yeah, that's the pick.
Yeah, I think he'll probably end up being a late first round pick in most dynasty draft. It all depends on how the draft shakes out. But he had a good 40 time at the combine. He's got the frame that you look for, and could end up being a late a late first round pick, early second round pick in NFL drafts. With how things have been trending with his rehab and the film he put on the field before the end of this last college season, and then his showing at the combine. So he's a guy I definitely have my eyes on, because I am pretty high on him. I have him as the he's my 8th overall player, my 6th wide receiver. So to get him at 15 overall here is definitely, in my opinion, is a steal. And I'm going to stop another slide here. This guy is my running back 4. He's the 11th overall player for me. I think he should still be a first round pick, even despite the poor testing at the combine and things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the slide and grab Isaiah Spiller, running back out of Texas A&M. Now, no question, the combine and things like that were ugly for Isaiah Spiller, but he still put a lot of good stuff on tape. He looked good out on the field, and I do think he's better than what his testing numbers show. So I wouldn't, in a real draft, I wouldn't let him fall this far. I don't think he should fall out of the first round. Now, if the NFL draft comes and he ends up sliding, then, that's a different story, because in my mind, for quarterbacks and for running backs, draft capital is extremely important. Not so much for wide receivers. Wide receivers find a way to get on the field, and they can use what makes them special to get open, to get targets, and to show they deserve to be on the field. But for running backs, especially, draft capital is what kind of leads you to, if you get opportunity or not. And so I do still think Isaiah Spiller gets decent draft capital. I don't think he slipped that far. And I expect him to get a shot. And while he's not my favorite running back in this draft, again, I told you, there's only 2 running backs that I really like, and he's my running back 4. So, but yeah, at this point, at the 204, whenever I think he should probably be the 11th, 12th player off the board, like he should be a first round pick. I'm not going to let him go any farther than this.
Yeah, he was going to be my next pick as well. All right, so this leaves some guys still here on the board for me. This is another very simple pick as well. I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson at wide receiver position. And he's a guy that, I think he could be a very, very productive slot player. He's got, gets open very easily, very sure-handed, catches balls, and has really impressive speed as well. To where this is a very deep wide receiver class. I don't think it's as good as maybe some of the other ones the last few years, but I think it is very, very deep to where you're going to be able to get a lot of productive players in this class. You're not going to have that high end production that I think, you might get out of, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CD Lamb, those type of rookies, but you're going to get some really, really productive guys even late on in the draft. So Jahan Dotson is just one of those guys that I think you could take him, feel safe, and throwing him on your bench, could spot start him, in a flex position if you need to because of injuries or bye weeks. And he's a guy that could give you some decent production even his rookie year.
Yeah, I think this would be a steal at the 205 personally. I do think, and once the draft capital gets attached to Jahan Dotson's name, I think he'll start shooting up.
I agree. Man, the wide receiver classes there's so many wide receivers to choose from. So I want to switch it up a little bit here. I gambled a little bit on running back already. I want to go Kyrion Williams.
Yeah.
And I feel like that could work out if we're gonna take some chances elsewhere. I think that would probably be the next step.
Yeah, he was a guy that I think before the combine was probably projected to be a first round pick in Dynasty rookie drafts. Kyron Williams was a guy that a lot of people were rising on out of Notre Dame, and his combine was less than stellar, to say the least. But definitely still some potential there. The size leaves some, the size and then the lack of speed at the combine leaves some stuff to be desired. But it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out with the NFL. This makes me extremely happy because the guy I was hoping to grab right here is still on the board, and that is Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver out of the University of Kentucky. I'm a complete homer. I'm a Kentucky football fan, and I do not care. I will gladly take him here. The dude transferred to the SEC out of Nebraska, came over to Kentucky last year, and all he did was go 104 receptions for 1,300 plus yards and 7 touchdowns. He was peppered with plenty of targets, and his combine testing numbers weren't the best either. But I can promise you, after watching plenty of Kentucky football this year, his field speed is much faster than what his combine speed looked like. And this dude just needs to land at a spot kind of similar to Trey Burks, but not as extreme. Because he is not Trey Burks, but he's not Treylon Burks. But Wan'Dale Robinson just needs to land in a place where the team knows how to use him correctly, and he could be an absolute force because he's not just your typical the first person that sees him tackles him because he's smaller type of guy. Like, he can break tackles, make plays, yards after catch, all that. Like, I love Wan'Dale Robinson. Again, I'm a homer, don't care. Gladly will take Robinson in the middle of the second round.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I think that'd be a really good pick, but a guy that I'm willing to kind of take, I've got him in that same range, but I wanted to take a shot on here, just as kind of like a home run swing, which is, as we're getting into the later draft, that's kind of what I look to do. If you are picking later on in the draft, and that's a guy that's coming off of injury as well, played wide receiver for Alabama. And that is John Mechie the third. From my, he's fallen down boards basically just because of the injury, kind of the same thing as Jameson Williams, but he's another guy that has blazing speed. I don't think he's quite as good as a wide receiver prospect, maybe in the NFL, but he's a guy that if he does end up putting it together, he has some of the athletic tools that he could once again be a very, very productive player that you could be getting in fantasy football. And I think you might even be able to get him later than this, honestly. So he's just a guy I would be willing to take a shot on and hope it hits.
Yeah, personally, he would be he's right behind Wan'Dale Robinson for me at 16 overall. So he was like the main possession wide receiver for Alabama the last 2 years, and he's been completely forgotten about because he got injured. So he's a guy that you're going to have to be patient with, but in the back of the second round in a rookie draft, you can certainly afford to be patient with.
I'm kind of throwing a dart here too, but if we're going to go based on speed, Calvin Austin III from Memphis.
Oh, he's gone. Landon, that's the guy
Oh,
Landon
Landon,
took his
I'm
shot
so
on in the first round.
Come
Damn it,
on,
Landon.
man.
Good call, brother. My bad. That was so many rounds ago.
I ain't letting nobody grab him. And see,
Yeah.
that's exactly why I took him where I did, because he wouldn't have made it back to me.
Good point. Good point. Oh man, that kind of put me on the spot. Hold on one second here. I've got a list I'm kind of going by. What is well, let's go with Justin Rhodes or Ross. Justin Ross. I'll go with that. Damn, Landon. I totally forgot about that pick. Good call, man.
That's what I do.
Yeah, so I mean, wide receiver out of Clemson, he's all similar to George Pickens, dealing with some injuries as well. His a little bit more serious, I think. But if he doesn't ever deal with those injuries, then I mean, there's no telling how high in this mock draft he would have went. So it's kind of unfortunate that he did have to deal with that. Let's see. I'm looking through the rookie rankings that I have up to this point, and it looks like all of the top 16 players are off the board. So I'm going to follow my rankings and grab the next guy, which is ironically the next guy that Sleeper has as well. But David Bell is the next guy for me, the wide receiver. Man, this is a guy where you're just truly trusting the tape, because I mean, his testing numbers, but just especially at his pro day, which is most recent, were just not great. I mean, George Karlaftis, the edge out of Purdue, I think he damn near ran a faster 40 than Bell did. So he's definitely a guy that's sliding right now. But as a true believer of trusting the tape, at the back of the set, like before his pro day and things like that, he probably would have been an argument for, a late first round, early second round pick. So at this point, I'm willing to throw a dart and just hope that he lands somewhere that's beneficial to him and he gets it figured out. He's not my favorite player by any means, but I mean, the reality is none of these guys are my favorite player by, at this point in a rookie draft. Like, I kind of lost interest for the most part once I grabbed Wanda Robinson and Mechie came off the board. It's just like, it kind of is what it is at this point with this class before they get landing spots. So I'll grab the guy who is next up on my 1.0 rankings that I've put together up to this point. I only went 24 players deep just to prepare for this mock draft. So I haven't gone too deep yet, but he was the next best available for me personally. So.
Yeah. And so, just kind of echo you there. I'm just going to follow with the next guy here on the board. And that is finally, I'm going to take a running back. And that is Zamir White here, running back out of Georgia. The only reason he's even this far down is because he did have the 2 knee injuries there at Georgia. He's had some injury concerns for sure, but very solid runner between the tackles, has good burst, to get outside. Very decent at breaking tackles as well. I think he's going to have a better NFL career than he did college. Career. I would actually probably take him before some of these other guys like Isaiah Spiller or somebody like that. I'd actually kind of be willing to take more of a shot on him. And then another guy, is Brian Robinson out of Alabama. Mm-hmm. So there's still a lot of really good players here on the board. So I'm not going to spend too much time because I could probably go like 3-4 rounds in this draft and feel comfortable talking about some guys. It's a very deep draft. Like I said, you're not gonna have the top end talent, but I think you're gonna get some productive players even later on. So, I'm just gonna finally pick a running back, go with the next guy that I think has some pretty decent upside in the NFL, who's probably gonna have a better career in the NFL than he did in college, and I'm just gonna take him.
Good pick.
All right, close this out, Jared. Bring us home.
Alex Pierce, Cincinnati wide receiver, 6'3". That's a good one. Impressive combine. I feel like he's NFL ready and his speed can kill, man. Like, I think he's an explosive player for fantasy, especially. Actually, if I could take my Ross pick back, I would.
You got him eventually anyway, so it all works out.
It worked out pretty good.
Hey, look, another dude I'm high on. I just want to point it out before we do end this. I know you can probably get him late as well, but I do want to shout out Jelani Woods, tight end out of Virginia.
Yeah, he's been rising a lot for a lot of people lately.
Yeah, that dude.
He tested really well.
Really, really, really well. He actually would technically be considered the most athletic tight end by RAS score in NFL history. So he's a guy that he didn't really do much receiving work where he was, transferred to Virginia. In his first year of playing there, they actually kind of featured him as a little more. I think he's a fantastic blocker, but he actually got some run as a receiver finally, which is why he transferred. And all he did was put up over 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. In his first year as a receiver. He's still very green. So
light work.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got a lot of room to grow, and he has all the tools to be just an absolute stud in the red zone. And that's what you're looking for at tight end is touchdowns. That's really going to carry that position a lot. So he's a guy that could rack them up very quickly at the next level.
Yeah. So, I mean, we went through 2 rounds, 24 picks. I put together my top 24 prior to this. And there was only 2 guys in my top 24 that didn't go off, which was Brian Robinson Jr., the running back out of Alabama, which was my running back 6, and then Damian Pierce, running back out of Florida, which was my running back 9. And again, I said at the beginning, there's 2 running backs I like a lot, and then after that, it's kind of like a crapshoot to me. So, not that upset that those guys didn't get picked. It'll really just be kind of like a what's your flavor type of thing with the running backs this year once they do get landing spots. But I do think this was a good intro for us into the fantasy aspect of Dynasty leagues this year and kind of what to look out for. And I'm really, really interested to see how things change once the NFL draft actually happens. And I mean, I've watched a little, I've watched of the top guys, I've watched quite a bit, but like the mid to late second round picks, I've watched a little bit of film on, but not as much as I would like to be comfortable to really put them into tiers. I've got a top 24, but I don't have them tiered out yet. So that'll be something, over the next month or so that I'll look to do and kind of finalize once the actual, NFL draft happens, is to tier these guys out, because that was last year. That was by far my favorite thing. Like the thing I had most fun doing was putting together my first official rookie rankings for Dynasty leagues and tiering them out and things like that. And I was after
I was going to say you're really, really successful with it as well.
Yeah, it's only 1 year into their careers, so there's still a lot to play out. But after 1 year, I'm really happy how those rankings played out. So I'm really excited to dig more into this class and see, if I can have some similar success. As far as that goes. But this was a really fun exercise, though, just to kind of see the landscape of Dynasty leagues for this year. And it's a class a lot of people have spent a lot of time shitting on, but I feel like there's a lot of really fun players in this year's class, though.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think it's just because you're not going to have that top tier guy. You're not going to get,
Yeah, there's not Jamar Chase, there's not Kyle Pitts, there's not Jonathan Taylor in this class, but there's a lot of guys that can produce, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you're looking at probably, some high-end wide receiver 2s, maybe low-end wide receiver 1s. I mean, like at the very best, and then the rest of it, you're probably looking at a lot of flex plays. But look, man, flex plays, as we've seen, injuries happen, bye weeks happen. It's a long season now. You got an extra game. So
Amon-Ra St. Brown won people fantasy championships this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure did.
So I mean,
he won a lot of people money in DFS too.
Yeah, and that guy was an afterthought in fantasy drafts last year. So, and that's why I reached on Calvin Austin, was because he wouldn't have made it back to me if I would have waited. So
yeah, no, I forgot.
Yeah. So yeah, I got my guy. It ended up working out for me. And that's all I really cared about. So yeah, that's our 24 quick 2-round mock draft 1.0 for Dynasty leagues rookie draft. Is there anything else you guys want to add to this little exercise before we go ahead and close out the show?
No, just be sure to stay tuned, because we'll do this again post NFL draft to see how things have changed. And I mean, we're gonna, we've got we'll dissect the NFL draft as well once it happens, just from an NFL perspective, not from a fantasy perspective, but then we'll get into the fantasy aspect of it. Well, I'm sure similar to last year, we'll break down each division, leading up to the NFL season. Like if you're looking for NFL content year round, if you're a psycho like we are, we're here to give it to you, because we're regardless if people are listening or not, we're going to talk about the NFL year round, because we're psychopaths that can't get enough. So if you are still listening with us, and if you are, as crazy about the NFL and fantasy football as we are, please hit the subscribe button, hang out with us. And the most important thing for me personally is provide some feedback in the comments. Like if you're on YouTube, comment below, let us know players we reached on, players we should have grabbed that we didn't. Anything you agree or disagree with, just so we can continue the conversation in the comments, because I think, there's growth to be had in conversation with other people that also enjoy this space that we're in, and being able to kind of get different opinions and things outside of just us three guys. So, if you are out there, if you are listening, let us know where you agree or you disagree, so that we can keep this conversation going.
Yeah. And we might have some guests hop on here as some fantasy stuff ends up popping off post draft. We'll bring some guests on here as well. So we'll have some different perspectives and stuff like that. I actually talked to a guy earlier tonight who's actually really big into Dynasty, and he actually has pretty decent Twitter following as well. Does some stuff for the Fantasy Football Nerds, if you're familiar with that website.
Very familiar. Yeah, those guys do great stuff especially for Dynasty. Like their film room. If you're looking for a place to watch film, go pay some money to their website, because they break it down for you. They do all the work.
Yeah, so I had a quick little conversation earlier with one of the guys there that works on their Dynasty stuff, and we had some talks, and might possibly be seeing him on here post draft to join us for some Dynasty stuff as well.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, man. So just keep your eyes peeled out for that. Also keep your eyes peeled out for some Bobby Wagner news. Probably should be happening at probably maybe late tonight, but more than likely tomorrow. So
down to the Rams and the Ravens.
Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled open for that. That should be happening relatively soon. And we'll have some reactions for where Bobby Wagner decides to go. And we're really excited to get this kicked off. There's still a lot of free agents that are still out there being ready to sign. We're getting closer to draft season. So you already know we'll be having our official mock draft version 2.0 coming out here in a few weeks. And then we'll get ready for our final mock with trades, everything like that, getting ready to drop the week before the draft starts. And we'll be able to cover everything. So I'm just really excited, man. There's so much football. And then we even got baseball, Pujols back in a Cardinals uniform. Everything's right in the world.
Speak like our fantasy baseball draft is going to go live on our YouTube channel Sunday morning. So like if you're for some reason are listening to this still, but you also enjoy baseball and fantasy baseball, we got a fantasy baseball draft that's going to happen live on the channel. Will be pushed out Sunday morning as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. That was a lot of fun last year.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I know we're really excited to bring that to you as well. So see, we're not just football. We do venture out, even though it's like 99%.
A little salt-based sprinkle of baseball.
Yeah, exactly. So we're really excited for that to get going. But yeah, outside of that, thank you guys so much for supporting us. Like I said, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel. A lot of the people that watch these are not subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, and make sure to hit that bell notification if you want updates. Like I said, follow us on Twitter at 3Man Rush Podcast. And if you are just a listener, not a watcher, we are available on Spotify. We are available on Amazon Music, on Apple, anywhere you can get podcasts. We are there at the 3Man Rush Podcast. And, outside of that, thank you guys so much for supporting us. We know our viewership and, it's really starting to grow, and we appreciate all the support that you guys are putting in. And, just make sure to share us with your friends or anything, retweet us on Twitter, anything like that. To help support us. And thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you Sunday with the fantasy baseball mock.